Welcome back to the deep dive. So today we're looking at a decision that, on paper, makes almost no sense. We're tracking a developer building a high-frequency trading system, and they looked at all the modern tech, Rust, Go, the latest C++, Cine, and just said, nope, I'll take plain old C.
It's like showing up to a Formula One race with a go-kart you built in your shed.
Right.
But here's the crazy part. The go-kart is kind of winning.
That is a bold claim because, when you think HFT, high-frequency trading, you're picturing Citadel, Jane Street, you're picturing what? Teams of PhDs, custom hardware, microwave towerware.
And Linux kernels stripped down to the absolute bone.
Mm.
And that is the institutional game for sure. But our source today is looking at the retail reality. If you're a solo dev working on a Windows machine, trying to copy that institutional stack is just a trap.
A trap how?
You spend 90% of your time just fighting your environment and like 10% of your time actually building your strategy.
Okay, so this isn't about chasing nanoseconds.
No, not at all. It's about development velocity. The source actually calls it the Great Pivot. They started this whole thing in modern C++ with Visual Studio on Windows. And to quote them directly, it was a dependency nightmare.
Unpack that for me, because C++ is the industry standard for HFT, right? So what went wrong?
Well, Windows went wrong. Or, more accurately, C++ on Windows. It's not like Linux, where package management is pretty sorted out. On Windows, you fall into what people call DLL hell. You're just fighting with CNAKE files, linking errors.
Mismatched ABI.
Exactly. You're spending your Saturday night debugging some obscure linker error instead of, writing a trading algo.
Right, the cognitive load is just huge.
It's massive, especially for a one-person team. Every hour you spend on that is an hour you're not analyzing the market. So they nuked the project.
Just scrapped.
Stripped it all the way down to C99, no classes, no templates, no complex overhead, just functions and structs.
That sounds a little risky. C does not hold your hand. You're managing your own memory. One bad pointer and the whole thing comes crashing down. It feels like taking the seat belts out of the car to save weight.
And that's the trade-off, yeah. But for a single developer, the code was readable again. It compiled in a flash. It was, to use their term, runnable. And this brings us to the weirdest part of this whole story, the role of AI.
Okay.
Because you'd think, right, if C is so dangerous, you'd want the smartest AI possible helping you.
Of course. You fire up Claude 4.5 or GPT-4o, the top of the line.
And that's exactly what failed.
Wait, what? Failed how? I thought Claude 4.5 was like the best coding assistant out there, right?
For Python, yeah, absolutely. For JavaScript, sure. But the source found that for C++ WAR, Claude was, well, the word they used was a gas bag.
A gas bag.
Too verbose. They said a simple concept that should be 300 lines of code would just balloon into 1,300 lines after Claude touched it.
So it was over-engineering everything.
It was trying to be modern, adding abstractions and classes and all these safety wrappers the developer never even asked for. And in C or C++ white, more code just means a bigger surface area for bugs. Plus, the context window would fill up way too fast.
So the quote-unquote smartest model was actually a problem because it couldn't keep things simple. So who won? Who was the best AI for the job?
Gemini 3 Pro.
Really? That's not the first name that comes to mind for coding.
The source was super clear on this. For C and C++ specifically, Gemini 3 Pro wrote code that was about 1/5 the size of what Claude generated. It didn't try to be clever. It just wrote raw C code. Kept the logic tight, kept the file small.
That is a fascinating takeaway for anyone listening who codes. We all tend to have our favorite model, but maybe we need to treat them more like specialized tools.
Exactly. You don't hire a poet to write a technical manual. And to round out this whole new stack, the developer also switched to an IDE called Anti-Gravity. It's a Google fork of the Windsurf or VS Code IDE.
So the stack is simple language, C, concise AI, Gemini, and a specialized IDE.
Yep.
Okay, so the machine is built. Let's talk about the engine, the architecture. Because they fell into a classic trap at first, right? The client per instrument model.
Oh, yeah. That's where you write a program to trade, say, Bitcoin. Then you copy and paste it and tweak it a bit to trade gold. Then you do it again for the S&P 500.
And 3 months later, you have a dozen different code bases and a bug in one of them, and you have no idea how to fix them all.
It's a maintenance nightmare. It just doesn't scale. So the pivot was to client per strategy.
Okay.
Think of the software like a mercenary. The software knows how to fight. Let's say it's an RSI mean reversion strategy. It doesn't care who it's fighting.
So you just fire up the program from a command line and tell it, use this strategy on this target.
Exactly. Use RSI on gold.
Yeah.
And you can spin up 5, 10 instances of that same program, all running in parallel, all reporting back to one central gateway server. It decouples the logic from the asset.
And that gateway server, that's the lifeguard on duty.
The lifeguard and the executioner. Its most important job is the kill switch. You have to remember, this is running from a home office, maybe a small server. If your internet cuts out while you have 10 positions open,
And the market moves against you.
you're done. You're bankrupt. So the gateway server monitors the heartbeat of every single client. If one of them goes silent, maybe the program crashed, maybe the Wi-Fi blinked, the gateway automatically flattens all of its positions at the exchange.
That's the difference between a bad day and a total catastrophe. Okay, so we've got this robust, C-based system. It's fast to build. It's safe. Where do you point it? The source material had a pretty grim outlook on the markets.
Grim is a good word for it. The developer is looking for profit in a world that feels really fragile, and they are very, very bearish on the poster child of retail trading, crypto.
That's surprising. You'd think an algo trader would love crypto. It's 247, tons of volatility. Why so skeptical?
A few things. On the technical side, Bitcoin is showing a death cross. But the bigger argument is structural, that retail traders are getting frozen out. The real volume, the real action, isn't happening on Binance anymore. It's on the CME and on Coinbase Prime.
The institutions showed up.
They showed up, and when they do, all the easy money, all those little inefficiencies, they just disappear. The source argues that stablecoins are sucking liquidity out of the system, and honestly, the risk-reward just isn't there right now.
Okay, so if digital gold is out, what about actual gold, the traditional safe haven?
Also looking tricky. The thinking is that gold and silver might have already peaked. Silver is especially vulnerable because it's not just a precious metal, it's an industrial one.
Right, for solar panels, EVs.
And if the global economy slows down, which the source thinks it will, demand for silver could fall off a cliff.
So where's the opportunity? You build this high-speed system, you need movement, you need volatility. If everything's just slowly dying, you can't trade that.
You trade the chaos itself. The source is looking really hard at the VIX, the volatility index, and at currencies. Specifically, betting against the US dollar.
Betting on what instead?
The Mexican peso and the Swiss franc.
The peso. That feels a bit out of left field.
Not if you follow the futures volume. But the real big picture here is this idea of macro risk. The source is watching the Japanese bond market like a hawk. The idea is if that market unravels or if China starts exporting its deflation to Europe.
That's the big shock.
That's the shock. That's the event that sends the VIX spiking to 2030, and that's where the C system is built to thrive. While human traders are panicking, the system is just calmly executing its strategies on those volatility spikes.
You're building a machine to profit from the storm, but that raises a big career question. I mean, if you're smart enough to build this and analyze the Japanese bond market, why do it from your garage? Why not just walk into Jane Street and take the, $400,000 starting salary?
The source pours a very, very cold bucket of water on that idea. The corporate gatekeepers, as they call them, are real.
We're talking about the degree requirements.
It's pedigree. Plain and simple. You need a master's or a PhD, preferably from an Ivy League school. And the competition is just, it's mathematical. It's like 200 applicants for every single job.
Wow.
And if you didn't apply for next summer's internship back in November, you were already too late. The cycle is brutal.
And I'm guessing remote work is completely off the table.
Dead on arrival. In HFT, if you are not in the office, you are not working. It's a massive security issue. They need to know you aren't steering the code or front-running the firm. It's a deeply paranoid industry.
So for the person listening who's brilliant but maybe didn't go to Harvard, is that door just closed?
The door to employment might be, but the door to profit isn't. And that's why the source pushes this garage hedge fund model. Stop trying to get a job based on your potential. Get a job based on your results.
Show me the P&L.
But it has to be verified. The source is really clear about this. A GitHub repo of backtests means nothing. Anyone can cheat a backtest. You need third-party broker statements, FCM reports, that show a real track record, a Sharpe ratio over 2, solid win rate, managed drawdowns.
That's your ticket in.
That's the ticket. And there was a great little hack for LinkedIn mentioned. If you want to get noticed by the big firms, stop posting text updates. Post infographics.
Visuals.
Yes, visuals of your system architecture. A diagram showing how your C code talks to the gateway. The HR person screening resumes won't get it, but the director of trading at BlackRock scrolling through his phone at lunch, he will get it, and he'll stop scrolling.
That's brilliant. You're not marketing yourself, you're marketing your competence. But to get that track record, you need a broker. And that was the last piece of the puzzle, right? The brokerage war.
Yeah. And if you're trying to do this with Interactive Brokers IB, you are basically running a race with your shoelaces tied together.
But IB is the standard for retail traders. Everyone uses them.
For investing, sure. For high-frequency stuff, no way. The API limits are way too low, something like 50 requests a second. And the data routing is a problem. The source mentioned data having to bounce between, like, Switzerland and New Jersey.
That latency is the kiss of death.
It's everything. So the winner, according to the source, is Rhythmic.
I haven't heard as much about them.
They're built for this kind of volume. You get order book updates every half second. And this is crucial. Rhythmic users actually get priority at the CME exchange.
Wait, how is that even legal?
It's just business. Rhythmic generates so much volume and so much revenue for the exchanges that their data packets get put at the front of the line. If you're using a typical retail broker, you are literally last.
So Rhythmic is like the fast pass at Disneyland.
That's a perfect analogy. There's even a Diamond API tier if you have institutional level capital. But the lesson is, if you use the same tools as everyone else, you're going to get the same results as everyone else.
There's one final problem mentioned, and that was geography. What if you're not in the US or Europe?
Right, this is a huge hurdle, especially for traders in, say, Africa. A lot of these top-tier brokers just won't work with you. The source said, for crypto, Binance can be a workaround. But for the serious futures markets, you might actually have to move.
Relocate? Where to?
To a trading-friendly hub. Dubai and Singapore were the two mentioned. Dubai, for instance, has programs where you can get a visa and set up a company specifically for trading, which lets you bypass all those jurisdictional restrictions.
It's amazing how this digital industry is still so physical. You need the right code, the right server, the right broker, and maybe even the right city.
It all comes back to that first point we talked about.
Yeah.
Simplicity and robustness. Whether it's picking C over C++ out or literally moving to Dubai for a better broker. The whole game is about removing friction. The little guy doesn't have Citadel's resources, so you have to be smarter about where you spend your complexity budget.
I love that phrase, complexity budget. It really drives home the idea that high frequency isn't some kind of magic. It's a supply chain. It's the language, the AI, the broker, the strategy.
It's about optimizing every single link in that chain.
We've covered a ton of ground here, from C compilers to Dubai visas, but I want to leave you with one final thought to think about.
What's that?
We've spent this whole time talking about speed, but when you look at this developer's whole journey, the winning move was never actually about speed. It was about simplicity. They dropped complex C++ for simple C. They dropped the complex architecture for a simple one. They even dropped the complex AI for the simpler one.
Results over complexity.
Exactly. In a world where every company is trying to add more tech, more features, more everything, maybe the real edge, the real alpha comes from stripping things away until only the parts that actually make money are left. Maybe the tortoise doesn't beat the hare, but the tortoise at least finishes the race while the hare is stuck debugging a linker error.
I think that's the lesson.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you next time.